Welcome back to Is It Worth It Reviews. Today we have a real beauty on our hands here and it's called Gremlin. Now the Gremlin tube amp, actually it's a hybrid headphone amp, is coming from Apos. It's an audiophile audio store basically. They decided to develop their own headphone amplifier and the idea is that it should be affordable. So this is $120 with a pair of tubes coming with it. Those are Core Ray tubes, which are bundled with the amplifier for $120. And the tubes we are talking about here are 12AU7 and their equivalent 6922. All of these tubes can be used in the Gremlin. And the amp itself, as you can see, is a pretty simple design with bottom, top, and 4 rods holding it together. But what we do get here is a fully balanced amplifier design, and as you can see in the back we have XLR inputs or 4.4 balanced input, and in the front we have XLR headphone output or 4.4 once again balanced output. And this is a hybrid design that uses both transistors in Class A mode. They provide a lot of power and current capabilities to the output of this amp, but also tubes that are exchangeable. So these are sockets, you just need to remove these 4 screws, remove top plate, it's quite easy, and then you have the access to change these 2 tubes. But we'll talk about rolling them a bit later in the video. For now, I wanted to mention the power, which is 1250 milliwatts. So over 1 watt in power, that's quite a bit. Oh, and I almost forgot this important piece of information. This amplifier is not choosy when it comes to headphones. It can handle anything from, I think, 8 ohms to 600 ohms. With everything, I personally tried it. Low impedance headphones, there was no background hiss or some noise creeping in or anything like that. High impedance headphones, it still had plenty of power and drive. So this is like a very good all-rounder. You can attach your IEMs, but then your big high impedance cans and it will just work fine. And there is external power supply. It's this fairly small brick of 24 volts, 3 amperes. So having all of this technical information out of the way, let's talk about how it performs. I started testing Gremlin with its factory supplied Ray Tubes Core model. That is the bundle that you get for $120. And I noticed it has a very neutral tonality. And it's very open sounding, very revealing sounding amplifier, especially in the mid-range. Mid-range sounds rich, open, and filled with details. It's not aggressive, it's not super sharp or super focused on edges, but it is very revealing and informative in the mid-range. And I especially liked how, for example, vocals, both male and female vocals, but also acoustic instruments like trumpets, saxophone, and other wind instruments, they sounded very rich and especially tonally, like harmonically rich, with lots of inner tone texture and detailing. And another thing that I noticed is that this is a lively, driven sounding amplifier. It has spark, it has bite. It's not, if you think of a tube amplifiers, like something that sounds super sweet and mellow. This actually hybrid amp, both Class A transistors and tube stages, sounds very alive and snappy, and it actually has very engaging sound. The soundstage is decent, layering and separation of instruments is nice. It's not particularly huge, but it's quite okay, especially when you consider the price. So in isolation, this is simply a good sounding amplifier. But to put that to a better test, I quickly compared it to Topping L30 II. It's one of my favorite headphone amplifiers below $200. It goes for $150 actually. And this is a single-ended amplifier only RCA inputs, 6.3 millimeters single-ended output, but nonetheless I compared them, and what I found out is that Topping L30 II is bassier sounding. It has fuller bass line compared to Gremlin with stock tubes, but the mid-range is a bit more laid back, and upper mid-range especially is touch darker and definitely more laid back, which together creates a warmer, fuller sound with less prominent mid-range and highs. They're just more laid back. But punch, dynamics, that's all great with Topping L30 II. And between these two, there is no difference in terms of quality, so I can say this one is better or this one is. They simply sound tonally different, but equally revealing, equally engaging, musical, and they have plenty of drive and dynamics and kick. If you like something darker and bassier, L30 II might be better choice for you. If you like something slightly leaner and quicker in the bass and more prominent in the mid-range and with inner tone detailing, then you would prefer Gremlin with stock tubes. And then I just quickly compared Gremlin with these same tubes with Topping L70, and that was a quick win for L70 that sounded bigger, slightly more revealing, with slightly better controlled, grippier bass line, and sound staging is just a bit better, wider and airier with Topping L70. And that's it about a pair of core tubes. That's how they sounded to me. So then I moved to this more expensive, pricier pair of Ray tubes Select. And buying Gremlin with a matched pair of these Select tubes is $299. But currently, while I'm filming this video, there is a slight discount on Apos store, so this combo is $270 total. So you do get Gremlin, you do get a pair of these core tubes, and then a pair of Select tubes for $270. And while I did expect some improvements in sound with these better tubes, I did not expect it to be this big. Now, the sound improves in basically every aspect that it can be improved to my ears, starting with the bass line that now gained significantly more weight and punch and authority. That, what I've described previously as quick but slightly leaner bass line, that is just gone. Now we have a really full-bodied, punchy, authoritative, weighty bass line. And the similar story is with the upper frequencies. Mid-range suddenly gains more body, more fullness, and tones have better just physicality and three-dimensionality, and they step out of the mix better and feel bolder, fuller, more realistic. So vocals sound fuller, bigger, better, and basically all instruments too. Now this new boldness, fullness, and bass authority makes the whole amplifier sounds like it has more power. And that thing doesn't really change when we change tubes, but the sensation of such authority and punch in the bass line, mid-bass, and also mid-range, as I explained, makes you feel like you are having more powerful, more authoritative, more driven amplifier. And it doesn't stop there really. Now sound staging also improves quite noticeably. It goes from something that's quite normal and just moderate to bigger, more spacious sound stage with more empty room and empty space around each tone. They're separated better, and also after tones, tone trails, tone decays are observed with more ease and better, which is basically just really high resolution, but not in a way that somebody would imagine resolution like some sharp edges or sharp highs, but true resolution that brings out plenty of small detailing from recordings, and then spatial cues and those tone trails after tones, all of that is already recorded. It's just a matter of, is your gear as fully transparent and as clean sounding to actually pass all of that through. And with select tubes, all of that improves quite noticeably. And of course, now I had to do another round of comparisons. So I quickly started with Topping L30 II again, just to notice that this time there is no comparison really. Now with this newly gained dynamics, resolution, soundstage size, aftertone, decays and things like that, L32 now in a direct comparison sounds slow and unresolving. Its bassline, while warm, sounds sluggish and it's lagging. It doesn't have as clear transients and as good of a punch and control and grip as Gremlin with select tubes. Mid-range is not as revealing, and just the whole sound stage feels hazier and more cramped together. Gremlin with select tubes is layering better, it's creating wider, bigger sound stage, and it just has more dynamics, more control, more detail retrieval. It's simply a noticeably better headphone amplifier. So, okay, moving to Topping L70 now. You know, the one that sounded slightly better than Gremlin with core tubes. Well, now it's the other way around. Now Gremlin with select tubes sounds slightly punchier and more authoritative in the bassline, but also a bit fuller bodied in the mid-range, and highs have more flow. They just sound more natural, smoother, continuous in a way that Topping cannot really match. In a direct comparison, L70 sounds slightly drier and slightly rougher, like it has a bit grainier highs and upper mid-range. So cards have turned. Instead of Topping L70 sounding slightly better, now Gremlin actually sounds slightly better, which is a good achievement given that Topping L70 is pricier than Gremlin with select tubes. So I was surprised by that. And I needed to check, of course, where is its limit, Gremlin's limit. So I pulled out big guns, like Topping A70 Pro, and yes, Topping A70 Pro did sound just a touch wider, bigger, and even more layered, with bassline that has equal, if not slightly greater amount of punch and control and authority. Now in a direct comparison, Gremlin amp sounded just a touch narrower and just a touch less revealing. But I personally don't see that as a problem at all, because Topping A70 Pro is a $499 powerhouse of an headphone amplifier, and Gremlin with select tubes is a $299, currently on sale at $270. This basically leads me to conclusion. This amp with select tubes being able to outperform Topping L70, that is $350 US, and then having to face Topping A70 Pro, which is much pricier, like $200 US pricier, to actually be stopped, it's a really good tell of how high its potential is and how highly it can perform if you use really great tubes like Ray Select ones. And of course, just having that option to roll tubes means that you can play with plethora of different tubes. New ones, old ones, like ones from a century ago, almost. So there are almost infinite possibilities. You can play with that a lot. But for the purpose of this review, what you can order from Apos is like basic option of this Gremlin amp and core tubes for $120. That performs quite well, as you would expect for that price. It matches something like a really good Topping L30 II at $150 US. Just slightly different tonality, really great little amp. But then you can opt to get it with a pair of matched Ray Tubes Select, and then price goes to $299, but performance in that case really takes a hike, and this one can easily go head to head with some even slightly pricier headphone amplifiers. So if you're okay with this like translucent, quirky design, just top and bottom, no sides really, you have to be a little bit careful. so kids and pets don't get inside of your amp. That wouldn't be good. If you're okay with that, you can get really fantastic sound performance out of this small Gremlin amplifier. And that would be all for today, guys. Thank you for watching. See you next time.